Welcome back to Warfare News. This week we've had the dev server for 1.95, Operation Frost, which is the winter event, and it's rumored that the patch is going to come out tomorrow of this recording. So let's first get through the things that we found on the dev server, starting off with the mainstay of it, the Swedish air tree. Of the planes for them that we saw on the dev server when it was live was the JAA, a reserve biplane, a JAA with a camo as a rank 1 premium, the J11, which is an Italian biplane with Swedish guns, the J22A and J22B, which are some pretty decent looking fighters for their battle ratings at 2.0 and 2.7. The A is armed with two 8mm machine guns and two 13.2mm machine guns, and the B has four 13.2s. Despite the engines being different, they seem to have the same amount of horsepower and also the flight performance the same, although it's a dev server, so you can't really count that stuff because it's likely to be a work in progress flight model. After that was a big jump in battle ratings to 4.7 with the J26, which is a P-51D that carried Swedish machine guns. And after that was the thick boy J29A, which is like the J29D that's currently on the live server, but with 20mm cannons. Then there was the F version of it, which would carry air-to-air missiles and some rockets. After that was the J32B, which is a very cool looking jet fighter. It could carry 4 air-to-air missiles or some rocket pods and 2 air-to-air missiles. However, at the max, this thing is not a top tier 10.3 jet. There's only a 9.0 one, and its flight characteristics seem similar to a Sabre. However, it's likely to be a work-in-progress flight model. The next line over, the attacker line, was quite slim, starting with the B-17A, which while has some decent bomb loads, for a 2.3 battle rating is a bit disappointing. Even for close air support, it flies quite slow. Next down the line was the J28B, which is a vampire. In fact, it's such a vampire that it still has the British skin on it. Then there is the JA29B, which is an attacker version of the J29, had some pretty good rocket loads. One of its rocket loads actually consisted of quite a few rockets that could penetrate 500mm. And then next to that is the bomber line, starting with the B3C, which is the bomber. It had alright bomb loads, nothing much to write home about. It'll do fine for a 1.7 bomber. After that was the B18A at 2.7, looked a lot and played a lot like the JU88. And after that came at 3.3 the B18B, which is like the prior one but could carry some rockets. In fact, the same rockets that the JA29B could carry. It was pretty good ground attacker. And that there was the entire Swedish tree that we saw on the dev server. Pretty slim, kind of disappointing. That's like 15 planes. Well, there's some good news. There was actually quite a few planes found in the files that didn't appear on the dev server for some reason. These consisted of things like the B3, like the B3C, but with different, probably weaker engines. The T18B1, which is an attacker version of the B18 and could carry a 1,000-kilogram bomb and had two 20mm cannons. The B18B2, at least that's what Wikipedia called it, in the files is apparently called the B1 as well, which was a B18B1 with a 57mm frontal cannon. The J21A1, which is an awesome push prop plane, the plane that I've been looking forward to the most. Surprisingly, that plane also appeared on the live stream of the dev server, though not on the actual dev server. And the J20 Reggiani 2000, which I assume is an Italian RE2000 with probably Swedish guns. Now, my hope is the patch doesn't come out tomorrow, and they still have like 10 other Swedish aircraft to add to this tree, because this is insultingly slim, but only time will tell. For tanks, Sweden only got 2 of them, the SAAB 2012-48, which I tell you is going to be a massive meme tank, and a bit overpowered, as its main cannon has a 95mm penetrating AP shell, and it's at 3.7, and the KV-2 has a 95mm penetrating AP shell at 4.7. Now the KV-2 has armor, while this thing has no armor. However, no armor is best armor quite often, and this thing is also very speedy. I didn't even mention its reload rate for the autoloader, which is insane, at 1.2 seconds. Personally, I'd actually expect this thing to be up-tiered a bit, but it is premium, so you never really know what the Gaijin's going to do with that. The other tank, the Stridsvagn 1030, is actually quite disappointing. Not because the tank sucks or anything, it's because the tank is broken. The hull aiming mechanism is terrible. When it's working as intended, or at least I assume intended, it's extremely frustrating trying to get the crosshair to go over exactly the part you want to shoot at. But if you put the tank on an uneven surface, it seems you won't even be able to shoot straight because it won't sit still. Mr. Cone Gamer made a video about it. I think I'll just lift the footage, don't tell him. If your tracks are uneven, the tank will just wobble up and down. It's kind of funny, but the tank's broken. This is not esports ready. This isn't even Bethesda ready. I'm gonna say it. I'ma say it. Fallout 76 worked better than this damn tank. I really hope that Gaijin finds a way to make the whole aiming system not absolute garbage. But until then, I'ma agree with Arc of Steve. Do not pre-order this tank. Do not feed the snail. If you really need Swedish tanks for whatever reason, even though you can't research anything else because there's not others in the tree, buy the $20 one, the SAAB 2012-48. For the other nations, going from the right to the left, would be the French with the Panhard AML-90, which is a vehicle that I love. It's quite the speedy boy, not the fastest out there, but pretty good speed. It's 6.7. It shoots heat at fast with no stabilizer, but it's just an awesome car. That would seem like everything, but also like the Swedish, there were some things found in the files for the French. Well, there was one thing found in files for the French, the Dassault Anitonda 4M, which seems like a very cool modern jet, although according to Wikipedia, its stats don't really stack up to the other 10.3s, only having a max speed of 1,099 kilometers an hour. However, there's reason to disbelieve Wikipedia. For example, it says it can only carry 2 rocket pods. However, the screenshot from the CDK shows it carrying 4 rocket pods. China got 2 new tanks, the M42, it's an M42 reskinned, and the WZ-305, which is a ZSU 57-2, but I've been told that it was supposed to have radio proximity fuse shells, so it actually might be really good for shooting down aircraft and tanks. But these tanks were put into their own line of a spag line finally, although we haven't gotten the other spags that they promised. Also, why no like half track with a 50 cal? The Japanese got quite a few things. For tanks, you got the Type 90B, which is a Type 90 but has 10mm plates on the front of it. Everything else is the same, and you might be saying, hey, why this copy paste garbage? Well, it's because Japan has no other 10.0 tanks to take out, so now they can at least take out the Type 90 twice. But have fun grinding out that APFS-DS, which is a rank 4 modification with your terrible heat FS. Also in the terms of tanks, the Type 98 got a buff to its APDS, which is great. In the terms of ships, they got the Isuzu, which is like a Japanese Project 159, but also has a 320mm anti-sub rocket launcher, which is great for memes. Altogether, a pretty great ship, although it's going to be rank 2 at 4.0 and probably going to take an arm and a leg to research. There's the IJN Sendai, which is a lot like the Kuma class light cruiser. In fact, I think it's basically the same thing. What I'm much more interested in is the IJN Suzuya, which is a Mogami but armed with its original loadout of 15 centimeter guns. This one also has a weaker anti-air loadout. Personally, I suspect that they're going to add another Mogami with more anti-air as a premium like they did with the other nations. While I think this ship will give the Brooklyn a good run for its money, I don't think it will be able to compete entirely because it has a much slower fire rate. And finally, the name, only the name was found, no model or anything, for the IJN Tone was found. I do not suspect this to be in 1.95, maybe the next patch. The Brits, in the terms of tanks, are getting the Roykot 76 Mark 1D, which is another great armored car. Comes stock with APFS-DS, which is amazing, and has a average speed off-road, but once you get onto a road, it can really take off. Some disappointments would be that 3 out of the 4 crew members were in the turret, so it'd be kind of easy to nuke the crew with one shell, and it's a bit slow to get going. The Brits also got an armor upgrade for the Challenger 2, which was really just adding some ERA to the lower front plate. It didn't really do too much, but it'll be there to help, kind of. And in terms of ships, they got 2 Hunt-class destroyers, which were kind of small and armed with 3 turrets of 2 100mm guns. They got a K-class, which is like the N-class, and a Battle class, but missing its back turret, but has more anti-air. I'm not really too interested in British destroyers because they all look the same. Germany got a M41, but not just any old M41. This one had heat FS that could penetrate 254mm at 0-degree angles. Personally, I don't think it's going to perform too differently than the regular M41s that we see in other trees, and it also has less penetration than the RU-251 still, so it's not much of a game changer. For ships, of course, they got the Prinz Eugen, which is an Admiral Hitler, but with more AA. I think I've kind of been over that. And they have, of course, also gotten the Graf Spee, which I personally think is going to be OP. Now, its armor isn't that great, its speed isn't that great, but its guns are amazing. And yes, they have a slow fire rate, but it's not like that slow for the size of them. And you could seriously kill a light cruiser with one salvo. I didn't test the cruiser at long ranges, like 100 kilometers, so I'm not sure how accurate it'll be over there, but it'll definitely shake up the water a whole lot. But from what I've heard, DPS is still king, and the Brooklyn, of course, still outshoots this thing. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be OP, just not as OP. Like, it seriously needs to be 6.0 or something. Alternatively, Gaijin could rework Naval to not be so arcadey and get rid of the health bars so it's not DPS DPS based and more of how much damage you can do with your guns, not how fast can you do damage. In the files for the Germans, there was a unfinished MiG-MF model. How unfinished it was, I don't really know. It's possible it's just missing its skin. But as a data mine for the dev server states, the MiG-MF is going to go for the Germans, and the Russians are going to get a MiG-21 SMT. However, that one doesn't seem to have a model for it. At least no one has dug it up. For the US, they got one tank, the M60A3 TTS, which is like the M60 Rise, but not. I couldn't tell the difference between the two. They got one ship, the Porter class, which is like the Samores class, but not. It has 4 turrets of 2 120mm guns each. I think it'll be a pretty good destroyer for 4.3. Now, one would think that's all America got, but actually, they got some things in the files as well. Some things that I personally knew were coming, but it seemed a lot of people voting for it on the Operation Hotwire did not know it was coming. The AH-64 Apache attack helicopter. In fact, like 4 of them. The AH-64A, which is the standard, the AH-64D, which is the standard plus some radar, something called the AH-64A Patton, and a AH-64 for the British. The AH-64 Patton is apparently, well, I could gather an AH-64 for Israel, which is interesting. Perhaps it's going to be a pack vehicle, or maybe they'll just shove it right in there in the tree. They did the same thing with the TAM. And finally for the US, the XM1 was raised from 9.0 to 9.3, which many people have been asking for a while now. But oddly enough, the Xbox XM1, the Chrysler, was not moved. That's some grade A balancing there, Gaijin. In the terms of minor changes, there are some new pilot icons for tankers. I guess you can't really call them pilot icons. About 4 aircraft got some flight model reworks. There's a bunch of other minor stuff. I'll link it in the description if you care to read it yourself. The other news this week was the Operation Frost got announced. It's the winter event, and it's a pretty standard winter event. Do the tasks every other day, get the vehicles. There are 6 of them, 2 planes, 2 boats, 2 tanks. The vehicles that are up for grabs this time around are the aircraft. For Russia is the TIS-AM, which was one of those aircraft models that was leaked so many months ago, which is armed with 2 37mm guns plus 2 20mm guns or 2 45mm guns plus 2 20s, and could carry bombs, 2 types of missiles, and large caliber defensive machine guns. Now I'm pretty sure the missiles part doesn't mean air-to-air missiles. I think they're referring to rockets. There's a weird translation with Russia with rockets and missiles. The other plane is a quite weird one, the J6K1 for Japan, a rank 4 plane armed with 6 20mm cannons and 2 13.2 machine guns. Pretty nice armament, probably good performance. However, it was never completed. It got to the wooden mock-up stages, and then another plane of the Kawanishi company was accepted in the service, so there's no point in trying to develop a second one. That plane be the N1K. A lot of confusing going around with its armaments. Originally, it said that it was going to have 6 30mm and 2 20mm, but then it was changed. However, if you go on Wikipedia, it's said to have 2 13.2s and 2 30mm Type 5 cannons. However, an image of the wooden mock-up on Wikipedia shows the plane having 4 wing-mounted cannons and 2 fuselage-mounted guns. But the fact of this being a wooden mock-up and still being added is confusing. There were quite a few people complaining about how Germany had quite a few tanks removed because they were fake, yet Japan gets this. It's a bit of a different situation. This is a full-on wooden mock-up. The tanks that were in Germany were kind of made up. Well, 2 of them were made up, sort of. The Tiger 105 was an implied design. I don't think it was ever drawn up, just thought up, hey, let's put a 105 in the Tiger 2. It doesn't fit. The Panther 2 did indeed exist. I'm not sure if it was entirely complete. I know the hull is in some US military base, but currently it has some other Panther's turret in it. But where the issue came is that the way Gaijin made the Panther 2 did not match its historical counterpart. The Colline, or whatever it was called, that got removed. I believe that thing, well, it was just a regular Panther chassis, but had a special turret, and the turret was only ever made out of wood. As for the mouse, well, Gaijin should be ashamed from removing that. But if Gaijin is okay with adding vehicles that got the wooden mock-up stage, there's some Italians that would be quite interested in this. For tanks, Britain is going to get a Ram with a 94mm anti-aircraft gun on it. Very cool addition. It's a Canadian vehicle, which is is kind of funny because Gaijin had been putting the Canadian vehicles in the American tree, and now they disagree with themselves all of a sudden. The other vehicle is the Merkava Mark IIB, which is a Merkava with like smoke grenades and whatnot on it. It doesn't seem too different than the other ones, and there's probably actual differences with it, though I have a good feeling it's also going to be 8.7. I'm kind of interested in it because then I can have a Merkava lineup. It's going in the US tree, and it's going to be an event vehicle, not a premium, so you have to research the components. And for boats, there's a US PT 118, and it's some 3.7 boat that has guns on it. I don't care about the boats, they're so annoying. And Germany is getting the Type 1942 Jaguar. And no, I'm not pronouncing that the German way. There's no Jaguars in Germany. They're an American invention. And so you pronounce them the American way. What's with Germany's obsession with large cats anyways? Anyway, the boat actually is kind of disappointing. It's also 3.7, however, it's only armed with 3 105mm guns. And I believe the Germans already have a 3.7 destroyer that's armed with 3 120mm guns. The rules of the event are pretty straightforward. To get the tanks, you gotta play in tanks. To get the boats, you gotta play in boats. And you get the planes, surprise, you gotta play in planes. The first vehicle is handed after you do 5 tasks in that category, and the other vehicles handed out when you do 10 tasks in that category. Though there's a total of 12 tasks, and they're handing out pinup decals, which might fetch a nice price on the marketplace. To get these tasks done, you do 3 of the possible activities, and you got a 2-day period to do them, and they changed them slightly a bit, increased their difficulty. For example, for pilots, it says that you gotta get 40 kills a day, 20 in RB, or 14 in Sim. I swear they have doubled it since last time around. In other news, it's very likely the F.R.O.S.T 234 B2 might get some J2 takeoff rockets. Posted onto my Discord, a dude had decided to attack F.R.O.S.T, and then noticed it had a rocket animation coming from it, and it even showed up in a replay. Besides that, I think this video is long enough. So a quick thank you to my YouTube members, Grimace, Samurai, I Like 'em Thick, The Real Rat, Idi Nahui, Sukubliet, Mighty Peppers, Pointless Gunstick, and Waffly Joker 6. Members to my YouTube channel get uploads a little bit earlier than everyone else, and a unique Discord role, as well as emojis on streams. If you'd like to join, just hit the join button down below. It's only $5 a month. Now, if you've liked this video, hit the like button. If you didn't like the video, don't hit the like button. If you have any comments, concerns, or questions, you can hit me down below on my Discord. If you want to see more of these videos, I make them every Sunday. I make random videos throughout the week, and I stream on Saturdays. I'm also wanting to stream on some other days on twitch.tv, so be sure to follow me there. Thank you for watching, and have a good day. In the terms of bonus news, it's not a rumor that the patch is coming out tomorrow. It was announced when I was editing this video.